How's everybody today? Just getting going here, just getting rolling. Happy Tuesday. Good. How are you? Justine. Welcome in. Hey, Pickle Pie. How are you? Hello, Karen. Speak Life is in. Doll Close by Vicky is in. Alicia, Teresa. Welcome, everybody. Um, so we're getting another cold snap. We had summer. We literally had summer 2 weeks ago. And now I opened the weather this morning to peek, and there's a possibility of snow this week. So kind of funny how the weather, well, we live somewhere where the weather changes every 15 minutes. So it was 80 in Wisconsin yesterday. Wow. For April, that's pretty high. Yeah, the weather's been really crazy this year. Very crazy. We hardly had a winter. It was just very mild all winter, hardly any snow. And which is not a great thing for us because we use the snow in the mountains for our water sources. Story of home, welcome in. Minnesota has been up and down, hot, then cold. It's crazy. Yeah, it's been crazy here too. So crazy. You'll be in the 90s by the weekend. Oh, fun. I don't know. I'm in Utah, and that's one of the things Utah is famous for is just, you just never know what the weather's going to be. We've had snow in July sometimes, so kind of crazy. All right. So, um, I wanted to talk about something that I've talked about in the past, which is there are seasonal ups and downs. They don't have to be, necessary slower times in the sense that depending on what you're doing and what you're selling, it may be, still a good time for you. But overall, just overall in general, sales have been the best for me in the category that I sell in January through April. And you do get, good amount of sales in, it stays pretty nice through the holidays, but people are more focused on gifts and less on buying stuff for themselves. So depending on what you sell, it can be, not as great during the holidays. And then the slow season is after school gets out, end of May, 1st of June, until school gets back in, end of August, 1st of September, and then leading into the holidays. It's very much a trend that you can follow and count on. And like I said, it doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be super slow for you, depending on, how you strategize, what you pick up, what's trending, how you sell, if you have a big enough following, yada, yada, yada. Lots of factors. But just overall, I like people to be aware of that because sometimes people think that other factors, are affecting things and they start getting all going kind of rogue on theories and why this and why that. And you go on chat groups and you see people speculating this and that and the other thing. And it's just like there's lots of factors that affect online selling. Hey, Trade, welcome in. Trade Titan. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. Please read the show notes. And if you have questions, please put them in chat with a question mark so that I see them. And because it's hard for me to pick up on questions if they aren't in bold. All right. Let's see. I see my response on the iPad. Oh, okay. Anyway, so it is just a trend of how online sales are in general. And then there's lots of other factors. I mean, anytime there's really significant bad things happening in the world, it honestly affects. There's always a downtick in sales. I'm talking about the roller coaster ride we're on. And you have to be willing to ride the roller coaster. Because the sales are just very, up and down, up and down. And depending on what's going on in the world and what's going on in our country and what's going on with, other things, politics, tax day coming up, just all those things affect online sales. So you have to be willing to just ride that roller coaster. We had a horrible, horrible show on Friday. It was so bizarre. It was our normal time, normal day. And it was partly my fault because I had decided originally to not do it on Friday. And I kind of announced it that way. And then we switched it back to Friday. But still, I mean, people get notified when you go live and everything. And it was just, we had like so few people in the room. And it's my show that I do $2 starts because I sell the home decor fabrics. And it was just like dead, dead. And I could tell it was dead everywhere else. You know how you can tell it's dead? You get more raids when it's dead because people are like, oh, I'm done. And they start raiding out to other sellers. And it was like that. So you've got to be willing to ride the roller coaster and not get, too beat up about it because it is what it is. You're going to have good shows, you're going to have bad shows, and it's just, it is what it is. So Speak says, I'm a new seller and my first 3 shows were decent, but now all I get are crickets. No one is showing up. Very discouraging, but you're not giving up. Okay, yeah. And that you do need to do a lot of reflecting. So every time you have a show that you didn't, that didn't go as well as you had hoped, you do need to do some reflecting and make sure there aren't things that you need to change up, fix to try and make it better. But, sometimes there's nothing you could have done different. It's just, the people just weren't there. People were busy doing other things. People are anticipating tax day and can't come on the app because they can't spend their money. You just don't know. It does affect things. So there's a theory. Well, it's not really a theory, it's kind of factual, but there's a herd mentality in the world, which is that people follow the same kinds of paths and trends. And like even in traffic, if you've ever gone out to go do something at a time that you normally would never go out and do something, are you sometimes shocked that you're like, where is everybody? Where's the traffic? Did everyone leave town? No, you're just on the off trend, off routine time. Does that make sense? And that happens online as well. For some reason, there's just, everybody's on or doing this, everybody's doing that at the same time. And that's partly why we hate certain times for traffic, certain times to go shopping, certain times for all these other things, because everybody's doing it all at the same time. Well, you want to hit the times when everybody's doing it and miss when they aren't, but it's very hard to predict because of certain factors. Okay. And yes, being consistent is a huge key. Sometimes, though, you do need to decide at some point, okay, this time or this day or what I'm selling or how I'm selling it just flat out isn't working. And you do have to constantly change things up. So it's a total roller coaster ride. You've got to be consistent, show up regularly. But even the big sellers who've got a huge following are always trying new things, always switching things up, always doing something new because everybody loves something new, right? So every time a new seller comes on who supposedly looks flashy and has something new, everybody flocks to see what's new, right? It's just like I live in a smaller town. The other day we went out to do an errand, and on our way home, there were like 10 cop cars on a street, and all these people were out sitting on their front lawns on lawn chairs watching what was going on. Um, and it was like I was just cracking up because and it was and then I immediately went on to the Facebook group for our city to see what's going on because we live in a smaller community. And so I got the scoop, and but people are always looking for what's new, what's going on, what's happening, and that's where they want to go. So what are you doing to make sure you're what's happening? See what I'm saying? You've got to constantly be doing things to make it new and fun and exciting. And because otherwise, every time someone else new comes on, and then they're the new exciting thing. And then, I mean, you lose your regulars necessarily, but you will lose the flash. The people are going to see who's on, who's exciting, who's new, what's going on. Okay. Yeah, small towns. It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. And I don't live in like a rural area. We live, we're kind of suburban of the bigger town, but it's just still kind of a smaller community compared to most, bigger communities. And there's a lot of that small town attitude still. So people need to know what's going on, what's happening. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's just, one of those things. And I grew up in an even smaller town, so I'm like, this is the norm. Because my husband was asking me the other day, I was telling him about a friend that I went to high school with who she graduated as our valedictorian, and I had a decent high school class. I think we had, trying to think, I think about 300 in my graduating class. So it's not like peanuts, but compared to his, he had like 1,000. So it was a decent size because we were the larger community of a lot of smaller community. Your high school was 42. See, now that's like the boondocks, right? So anyway, I was telling him about this girl I graduated with, and how successful she had been. She went left high school, went to college, went to on to get a PhD, and became the CEO of a corporation. And she retired early because I'm pushing 60, so that's the age range, and she's already retired and doing some other things. But he said to me, how well do you know her? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like if you messaged her, she would know who you were and would respond. And I'm like, yeah. We had a really close knit, small group of people, and we really knew each other and hung around. When you live in a smaller town, I mean, we still had all the normal clicks that you get, but yeah, I was like, yeah, she would be like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, I've seen her at a couple of class reunions. She lives far away and I haven't like met up with her or anything, but you know, and my high school class, actually keeps in pretty close contact online, which has been nice because for our age group, that's kind of unusual. And so lately, though, our little Facebook group is just whose parents are all dying, and it's really depressing. So I don't love to go on there. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about whatnot. And so I was just talking about the ups and downs, the trends, that you've got to be aware that, you know, things like that do affect how your shows are going. And you just have to power through those down times because they do happen and they happen more often than we would like. So, yeah. All right. So, if you have questions, put them in chat with a question mark. I'd love to hear, what you guys are thinking, what you're needing. Um, we're going to do a show Wednesday evening. It's on my schedule where we're going to talk about social media. And I am not a social media expert in any stretch of the imagination, but I will tell you that every little bit of effort I put into social media pays big time. So, using social media to help grow your business on whatnot is huge. If you're not doing it, start doing it. And, every little bit that you can put into it does make a difference. So, we're going to talk about that, talk about some strategies. I honestly I'm not a big believer in paid social media advertising. I think it flops. I don't think it's worth your time and effort. Creative Cries with the raid. Thank you so much for coming in. Let's see who you are. So, Creative Cries, I am following you, so you've obviously been in here. Oh, I think you change your name? Let's see. Crystalline Crafts, Creative Crystals, and she does metal jewelry and like stuff like that. So you're on that artisan demo raid train that I know about on the 16th, and Old Soul's new sparkle jewelry raid train on the 12th. Welcome in. Welcome in. So thanks for that. Everyone, please give Creative a follow and bookmark her upcoming raid train shows. All right. So what was I saying? Oh, so on Wednesday night, yeah, we'll be talking about social media. It really does make a difference. Please, make an effort to figure out your Facebook password, get back on there, get back on Instagram if you're not on there, or get on there. YouTube, you can use YouTube if you feel like it will make a difference. And one of the options that you can do on whatnot is you can do what's called multicast. And I'm not going to go into it a lot because I'm going to talk about it on Wednesday, but look it up if you're curious. And then come Wednesday evening and we'll talk about multicasting and what that can do for you if it, could be beneficial. Honestly, if you can stand to do it, TikTok will get you some traction. I don't love TikTok, but I do use it. I use it in a couple of strategic ways. And then I don't know a whole lot about any others that people are really using to get anywhere. So those are the main ones I focus on. But you definitely should be using social media. So let's talk about that on Wednesday night. And yeah. So, what questions does anyone have? What are you struggling with? What things do you need help with to learn how the platform works? I have in my auction tab a bunch of documents Is there a way to have a personal TikTok and one for Whatnot? I believe so. I'm not a TikTok expert, but I'm pretty sure you can. I think you just have to have a separate email account that they're associated with. That makes sense. So, yeah, I don't think they have any limit. And they do have options for, creating it as like a separate business type media. Yeah. I kind of have, it's overwhelming to have lots and lots of different accounts. So I tend to mix business with personal a little bit too much, probably. But it's more just because I'm like, it's too overwhelming to do so many different ones. So I kind of keep them all. I mean, everybody that is close to me knows what I do. And if they don't love it, they just don't have to go to my social media, because I post things to my private. I can post things public or private. So anything I just want family, friends to see, I post as private. And then, I post other things public. So just depends on what works for you. And thanks for the question. Bless Your Heart Antique says, I sell real estate, so I don't want my clients thinking I am taking more time selling antiques on Whatnot than I do selling houses, if that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense. So definitely, keep them separate and don't mix them as much as possible so that you don't have that, issue. I would agree in that case. That makes sense. Yep. I'm always amazed at how many hats a lot of us wear. So, you may have a full-time job, you may have another side gig, you may have, something you dabble in. I'm always amazed at how busy our lives are. And it's kind of a testament to me that people who are driven, really can do a lot of different things. You have a hat closet. Yes. By the way, Story of Home has hats that you can buy. No. Yeah, we all have a hat closet, right? That we have to go and get the different hats we wear. But I think it's a strong indicator of people who are driven, who, are constantly doing different things to try and make a difference in life and improve your own life, improve other people's lives, help other people out. We do a lot of things, and when you think your life, if you think your life is boring, it isn't. If you're on here on this chat today, your life is not boring. Bless Your Heart says, I sell a lot of real estate. I have young kids who play sports. I do Whatnot. I have 2 Airbnbs. Am I crazy? Yes. Yes, you are. But you know what? You're the kind of person that if you weren't doing all of that, you would be going crazy, right? Am I right? You need to have all these things going on so that it keeps your life full and interesting and rich. So, and yeah, sometimes we do want to have a little bit more of a boring life, but often most of us, I'm guessing, we create our own busyness because we're just constantly like, what else can I do? What's this? What's that? Oh, what about this? We're like, we're all over the place because we kind of have to be, you know? Yeah. Yeah, I think all of us have ADD. I don't think anyone alive today almost doesn't have it in some form or another. It's just kind of how our brains have been programmed because of modern life. We've had to force our brains to do so much think so much about different things that, it's our attention is constantly being interrupted and taken from one place to the next. Just boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy. So let's see. Faye says, you're the same with vacation rentals and booths at flea markets. Busy, busy, busy. Yep. And honestly, busy is good. Busy is good. I can't imagine being the kind of person that has time to just go sit out on my porch, like the people I mentioned earlier, and watch what's going on with the cops down the street. I'm like, whoa, I don't have time to do that. If I did go decide to sit out on my porch and watch what's going on, I would have, a basket of something I'm sorting, or, I'd be online doing multitasking some other stuff at the same time. Because I just don't, I don't sit still hardly ever. I'm just going and going. So, but I think that's good. I mean, when you stop moving is when you give up on life and just kind of become a couch potato, right? Or start slowly slipping into that end of life attitude. You know, going is what keeps us, keeps our brains active, keeps us happy, gives us the adrenaline, the rush we need. Yeah, exactly. Your grandma's 95 and still lives on her own and cuts her own grass. She keeps busy. It's the people who just give up and start sitting in the armchair all day long that are just like, ugh, that's so depressing, right? My mom was the same way, and it was sad because she had to stop because she had osteoporosis so bad she'd bend down to pull a weed and break her back, literally. It was so sad. And so she died a little bit younger because she kind of got to a point where she couldn't do anything for herself and she hated it. She hated it. My mother-in-law gave up and was gone by 72. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. My mom would still be here if her bones hadn't given up on her. She'd still be going. And that I partly on her, but partly on her medical, professionals who didn't push her more to do something about it when she was diagnosed with it in her 60s. So always get checked for things like that. Yeah. Bless your heart says my mom retired as an ER nurse and then got bored and went back to work full time at a nursing home. She takes care of people much younger than her. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of it is your willingness to keep going, your willingness to, you know, continue to be active and do the things that keep you young. So, yeah, a lot of medical people just don't follow through. You have to advocate for yourself. And not all medical professionals are that way. There's a lot of good ones. But if you don't stay on top of things and advocate for yourself, you slip through the cracks. So make sure you really ask all the right questions, push people to, check things out. There's a lot of, things you have to do on your own, do your own research, even though they hate it. My husband's doctor actually screamed at him the other day because he asked a question about something I had brought up, and he screamed at him and told him, "Well, I wish I could just sit at the computer all day and search the internet for information about medical things." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, get out of your big head." I'm not like I'm looking up medical journals. I'm looking up legit stuff. I'm not just pulling stuff out of the air. Yeah. So sometimes they get a little bit too big on themselves and think nobody else can think for themselves or do research. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, they don't like that we can go research things. I'm looking at the same dang medical journal articles that you can go read, dude. So, yeah, it is in the culture. It's true. Yep. All right. So, what do you need help with? What can I try and encourage you on? Other than just saying, there's going to be down times. I feel like the last week and a half has kind of been that way. You can tell. You go on the app, there aren't as many people live. You do a show, you aren't getting as many people in your shows. You get a lot of raids. And like I said, some of the bigger players, it doesn't seem to affect them, but trust me, it does. If you look at their numbers, they're a little bit lower. If you look at what they're selling things for, it's a little bit lower, etc., etc. Let's see. What was the new referral joined your show? Did someone come in that said they were referred? I didn't. If someone did, I didn't see it. So if you share a show to someone and they click the link and come into a live show, it says right in there that they came through a referral. It was beside the people's name. Yeah, that's why. So someone shared the show, or they came through one of my links on either YouTube or Facebook. So yeah. Do you have a good place to learn on shipping? Well, I have this document in here that you can read through that helps you, based on what you sell, decide what the shipping settings should be for you. And then I have a YouTube video called Don't Sink Your Shipping. There's actually, I think there's 3 titled that now out there on my YouTube account that you can go watch. So the main thing with shipping, honestly, is you need to sit down and learn how the post office works and learn how Whatnot uses it through the post office. It's really not that complicated, but you do need to have a decent understanding of it. So yeah, go watch my YouTubes on Don't Sink Your Shipping. Look at this document that I pinned, and then also look at this one. So they're just in my auction tab. So you just hit the shop, go to the auction tab, and you just click the picture, click it again, take a screenshot of that. It will help you understand the different labels and the different shipping classes. So yeah. Do you think the algorithm has changed on here? I think they're always tweaking algorithms. I think but overall, no. But has the general atmosphere as far as number of sellers changed? That changes algorithms. So if you have, every time you have a new seller join, it switches things up a little bit because there's more and more sellers coming on. The algorithm has to sort things by how their algorithms work, which are, who has the most bookmarks, who has the most people in their show, who's getting the most hearts, who's getting the most people commenting in chat, who is selling the most. They have all of these different criteria. And so every time a new seller comes on, and I don't necessarily mean like new, they're brand new. I mean, every time someone goes live, it's constantly resorting what's being featured, who's at the top, and if you go look at, just go out every once in a while to the category that you sell in and count how many live shows there are and about how many people are in all of those shows, and do it a couple of times at different times and different days, and it will give you kind of an idea of when most people are on, when there's more people on, and you have to strategize and figure out what time works best for you and what time still gives you a good amount of when people are on. Does that make sense? So do some studies like that on your own to kind of see what the trends are. And the algorithms work based on those factors. And so when fewer people are on the app, you may be on top one day because there's just not as many on. But the next day, maybe you're buried because there's a bunch of bigger sellers on. So it just all depends on, honestly, who's on. Um, so, and there's just those are the kind of those things I mentioned. How many bookmarks do you have? How many followers do you have? How many people are in your show? Are they interacting and are they buying? So every time people start buying, it boosts you in the algorithm. So that's why one of the advice people that you always get is to always run your stuff, because actively running items actually boosts you in the algorithm. Even if it doesn't sell, you're still getting a boost. And then selling things obviously boosts it. And how many people are interacting in the chat, and people are putting hearts and commenting and sharing, and all of those things boost your algorithms for them sharing your show higher in search. Okay. Timber says, I'm trying to get started, just filled out the seller profile last night, or part of it. I'm on Etsy. I'm confused about how to control inventory. Let's see, I'm not sure what 1/2 means. So inventory control on here is a whole different ball game, because on live selling, you don't necessarily have to pre-list everything you're going to sell. That's part of the beauty of this platform, that you can just go live and just sell, 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 sell. And it doesn't necessarily have to be listed. Listings are important because they help you in the algorithms. They help you get people in your shows because they see the kind of stuff you're going to have. But once you get people in there, you can sell whatever you want live. So the sell through rate is the beauty of this platform. So you have to kind of have your own method of controlling your inventory outside of having listings, if that makes sense. So you've got to come up with, having some way to figure out what you have. And, when you sell live, you keep track of what's sold in some way or another. And then, once you've sold it, it gets shipped out. But how do you keep track of what you have? You have to come up with some kind of method of how you keep track of it. Hey, Trish, welcome in. Let's see. Timber, do I have to turn off my shop during shows? Deactivate, reactivate. I don't know what you mean by turn off. So you have a marketplace platform, your account, where you can list things. And those can sell 24/7, just like on Etsy or other platforms. And then what you sell during live shows is different than that inventory. But it also could be the same because you could pull a listing that you listed on your marketplace to sell during a live. So you don't turn it on and off, it's just always active. And then you go live and you can, sell. You don't turn it off, but you can sell things that are either live or not live. So Timber, go into my show notes and first of all, start watching other people's shows to see how it works. But in the show notes, the third starred bullet in my show notes is the Seller Academy, selleracademy.whatnot.com. So go there and watch all the tutorials and go through their little mini Whatnot school of how to use the app so that you learn kind of how it works. Okay. And honestly, sales on this platform are all about live shows and very little about listing items for sale that people buy 24/7. That's the honest truth. Can you get sales from listings? Yes, but that's not what this platform is about. Cherry asked, do you have to move items to your auction or can you auction from the bin too? You can do both. Once you create a listing, you can do whatever the heck you want with it. You can leave it sitting on your marketplace for sale 24/7. You can pull it into your show as a buy it now item, or you can put it in an auction item and run it as an auction. You can also have it in the buy it now and run it as an auction or a flash sale. So there's lots of options once you create a listing. Fabric and Fine said I am going to do my first show in the next couple of weeks, but should I open up my buy it now? Yes, I would start listing things now so that people can see the kind of stuff you're going to have. So get your shows scheduled. Always have multiple shows on your schedule and get stuff listed so that people can start seeing what you're going to have. Okay. Field Trip says I've been on since August and sold one item for my bin that wasn't during a show and only sold it during a live show when I show it live. Yes. Like I said, the marketplace is a very small part of sales on Whatnot. So compare that to, the other platforms that we're talking about, Etsy, eBay, Mercari, Poshmark, all of those other platforms. It's almost all about selling from listings. Whatnot is not about selling from listings. It's about going live and selling live. So if you're uncomfortable with that, this probably isn't the platform for you because it's all about live selling. Let's see, they've made the leaderboard thing now too under the main category. You can see who's on and who's selling. Yes. So go to the For You page. There's some new updates that are pretty cool. They put that leaderboard thing, but they've also put this little, and maybe this is only on iPhone. Tell me if it is. When you're on there, you can see a little like window come up on their thumbnail and it shows what they're selling or what's coming up next. And then you actually can watch the countdown. It doesn't show you the item. It just shows you that what the title, and then it'll show you as it runs and then as it sells. So it's kind of enticing you to come in and see what's selling and what it sold for. So it's on Android too. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So that's a new thing. But as you scroll, you have to be stopped and not scrolling for that to show up, is what I've observed. So Timber, you had another question. Let me check. Let's see. Let's see. One of two. Oh, I think I got both of them right. So Cherry, let's see. We answered that one. Yeah, I think I got to all of those. Let me know if I missed something. All right. And then Maria says, how does the bidding timer affect sales? Does sudden death get bigger sales? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think you have to play with it and see what works best for you. But there is a strategy, a methodology behind doing shorter time, faster sudden death auctions. And it has to do with people having to make a quick decision can, build the excitement and get you more sales. But you have to be careful that those types of auctions will work for what you sell, because you want people to not be upset that they bought something that they weren't fully aware of what they were buying. So, it all depends on the type of items you sell and whether people are aware of what they're buying. If you have it pre-listed, it's a little less scary because then they can see the listing. Maybe they pre-bid on it. It just depends on what you're selling and how you sell. And are you able to, give good enough descriptions and everything as you sell if you sell in such a fast time. So On Fire says, if you have an item cross-listed, does that have to be put into the description? I don't think so, but honestly, if you're selling on Whatnot and you're doing lives and you're doing what are called random pulls, I would not have those items cross-listed because you're gonna get dinged. It's gonna be too hard to keep track of that inventory. So I would not cross list items on other platforms that you're selling in live shows, as random pulls. I would delist them elsewhere because you're probably going to sell it and then you have to go figure out where you had it other listed otherwise and delist it. Oh, thank you, Story. We'll see how it fleshes out. It's just my husband and I working alone, and it is a lot of work to hit premier status and sell $50,000 in 3 months. I'm tired. So we'll see if we maintain it. I'm not honestly too worried about it. I mean, I want to maintain it, but if I physically, mentally, financially can't do it, it's not going to be the end all be all for me. Because honestly, becoming premier, have I noticed a little bit of an uptick? Yeah, but not that much. And then the point, it's a 10% discount off your commission, which if you're selling 50,000 every 3 months, the whole year, that only makes about a $400 difference. So, yeah, that's nice, but it's not like, and the increased visibility, I really haven't noticed a huge difference because there's a lot of competition. So I'm not going to have that be the end all be all and bust my butt if it just isn't worth it. Does that make sense? So yeah, it's cool, it's awesome, but it's not the end all be all. You can still have a very successful business on the platform without being a premier seller. All right, so what, Jen? Giveaways, I have it set up under stickers. I followed your example. If I give something different away that's not a fat eighth or a fat quarter, can I adjust the weight? So if they don't buy anything and you still have to send it under that giveaway, you have up to 3 ounces. The key is keeping it under, it's got to still be under a 1/4 inch thick, and it has to be able to go in a paper envelope. So don't do stuff as giveaways for envelope shipping if you're not going to be able to do that on the back end, because then you'll have to use one of your adjustments. So, but you do have up to 3 ounces. And on the back end, you just weigh it and change it, to 2 or 3 ounces or whatever. So everything under a pound, this is a big tip. Everyone put your listening ears on. Everything under a pound. If you sell something and you accidentally undercalculated the weight, so you sold it as 4 ounces and it's actually 8 ounces. When you go to ship, just change the weight to 8 ounces. It's the same price. You're not going to get charged any additional shipping. Did everyone hear that? So everything that's ground advantage under a pound, the weight needs to be accurate for it as you sell, so that as they buy multiple items, it's as accurate as possible. But on the back end, if they only bought one item, let's say, and it's coming in over what you calculated, you can just adjust it up, and do adjust it up so you don't send it out underweight. So just adjust it up. It doesn't use your adjustments. It's just, ground advantage under a pound. Okay. Does that make sense? All right, let me switch back to, let's see. Time capsule says, let's see, I set up and run a Gibby under stickers, and when I ran the postage came ground advantage. Any idea what I did wrong? Yeah, you need to follow those 3 steps. So make sure that you've got all 3 things in place. Probably you didn't update your shipping settings for all your shows. That's usually the biggest mistake people make. So this is the envelope shipping guide. Go through that again. You've got to turn it on in your shipping settings, but you also have to update it to all your existing shows. And then when you list the item, the only category that it can be listed under, well, there's 2: stickers or trading cards. And then the weight needs to be 0 to 1 ounce. And then as long as you have your shipping setting updated in the actual show, so there's a little check box. When you update your shipping settings, there's a little check box that you need to check before you hit save, so that it will save it to all your existing shows. And if you didn't do that, it won't have updated that envelope shipping, turned it on in that existing show. That's usually what the mistake people make. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Field Trip says I've gotten slower. LOL. My numbers are way down since getting it. Slower on what? Good morning. In a Violet World, welcome in. Sometimes that happens if the person already bought something, so the next purchase bumps it up to ground. Yeah, if they buy something, then you're going to be shipping that giveaway with the other items they bought, because it's going to bundle it. Oh, slower since getting Premier. Oh, yeah. Well, and like I said, I don't think it has anything to do with Premier status or not. It has to do with It's just how things are going right now. There's a little bit of a downturn right now. I don't know. I don't know if it's taxes. I don't know if it's just other factors. People are broke. Um, people already spent the tax returns and now everybody else is out of money and has to pay instead of getting a return. I don't know. But there's a little bit of a downturn, and it is what it is. So, welcome to the roller coaster ride called Whatnot and selling online. So, yeah. Um, and like I said, the algorithms are affected by how many people are on, how many other people have already, achieved that status. So, you and I got premier status at the same time as what, like 4 or 5 other sellers in our category. So, it's almost like a cancel out, right? Because if you've got 12 premier status sellers on at the same time, what advantage can you necessarily have, other than what you're doing? So, you've got to decide what you're going to do to continue to have the algorithm's favor. And yeah, it's been tough. I was telling everybody at the beginning, I had a show on Friday that I was like, wow, what plan am I on? Did I get transported somewhere else? Because it was so bad. I was like, wow. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't care about premier status. It's more about the reviews and what does that seller sell? How does that seller sell? Do I trust them? Do I click with their personality? Do I like what they're selling, et cetera, et cetera? You know, and a lot of it too is, and okay, just follow my reasoning here. Put yourself in a buyer, put your buyer hat on. We've been talking about putting hats on. Put your buyer hat on. Where is it easier to hang out if you're just hanging out on the platform? Or is it more comfortable? Where is it easier to hang out? Someone tell me in chat. If you're just coming on and you're going into shows, where is it more comfortable to just hang out? Especially if you're not going to buy anything because you're broke. So East Coast says small rooms. Story says not a crowded show. Okay. So then I'm gonna contest that and say sometimes it's easier to hang out in a crowded show. Nobody calls you out. Nobody has any expectations of you. You're just hanging out. I'm gonna say it's the opposite. It's easy to hang out in a small room, but you're noticed. Did you know that once a show hits 50 viewers, it doesn't even announce who's coming in? Yeah, you can hide in a big show. Okay, small rooms are nice for interacting and chatting and having a good time if you're just hanging out. But there's expectations because you're one of a few, whereas if you're one of many, you can just hide out. Okay. And I think most users know that you can put your account on private entry. But once a show reaches 50 viewers or higher, it doesn't announce when people come in, even if they don't have it on private entry. It stops announcing it because it assumes the chat's too lively and that would fill the chat. So that's how they built the platform. That's the programming. Once you hit 50, it doesn't announce people joining. So that's how it works. So I guess there's two mentalities here because I'm thinking If I'm just going to go hang out somewhere and I want to be invisible and I don't want to have any expectations on me, I usually go to a more crowded show. If I do want to interact and have, enjoy chatting, I go to a smaller show. So, see, it just depends on kind of what your mood is, right? Well, everybody has those different things. If they're in a buying mood and they want to buy a bunch of stuff, they need to go to a show that sells fast and shows a lot of things, right? You don't go into a slower paced show where you're going to have to wait to see a bunch of inventory, right? You want to go into a show where they show things fast, run things fast, and there's more opportunities to buy, more stuff to see. So, that's why, a bigger seller who is able to show and sell things faster, you're going to get more buyers because people are, if they're in the buying mood, there's got to be a lot of choices, right? So it just all depends. Just all depends. So you've got to decide, kind of show to show, look and see what's happening and so on. Okay. East Coast says, when I'm on here surfing, I go by the For You or followed host. The only way I see Premier Shop is if it's someone that I follow. Yeah, and that's true of the algorithms. The algorithms do narrow down what you actually see based on your preferences and your trends. So no matter what you do as a seller, the algorithms are going to not necessarily show you to people who don't follow you, don't already, have, come to your shows, don't have notifications turned on. It's just not, they're not even going to see that you exist to a certain extent. What can you do to combat that? If you're trying to get new followers, new viewers, new buyers, join raid trains, cross category raid trains is one strategy. Another strategy is you can pay to promote. That helps a little bit, but make sure it makes sense. So look at the analytics when you pay to promote and make sure that it's bringing in people who are actually interested and wanting to buy. So be careful about spending money on promoting. I would say in most categories that are the real mainstream categories where there's, like, women's contemporary, shoes, some of the other ones where you just have a ton of potential buyers at any given time. I think it makes sense to promote if you, can afford to do it. But in some of the smaller niche categories, maybe not, because it's, the audience is limited no matter what, because we just don't have as many buyers in our categories. So you just have to make sure it makes sense. Some people swear by it. Every time I've tried it, I haven't felt like it was worth it. But it's been a long time since I've tried it. So I just never felt like it was worth it, in my opinion. So if you tell me if you've had a different experience, and then tell me what category you sell in. So, and then the boosting, when people, oh, thank you, Trish. Thank you. And again, I was talking about that, which is that doesn't have to be the end all be all. And I haven't noticed a huge uptick in people coming to my shows because I achieved premier status. So, yeah. How do you feel about a paid promotion in bigger shows where they are doing Amazon gift cards in your name for X amount of money? Again, can it be useful if you're in a show that they will actually take the time to really thoroughly shout you out and have people go follow you and share your profile and stuff? It could be, but if you're in one of the bigger shows that's not in your category, what are the chances that there's enough people in there that would actually come follow you and then come back and buy? I mean, be honest. You know, can it get you some followers? Yes, but are they organic? Are they actually going to come to your shows and buy something? Probably pretty limited. So, yeah, I don't do those. I never felt like I had enough value in what I do to feel like it would justify people paying me to just buy gift cards and sell them at 50% markup. Because that's what it is. They're putting an Amazon gift card in there for $25. You pay 50 for it, and you hope that someone will come follow you. I don't agree with it. It gives me a bad taste. I think it doesn't work personally. Um, I think there's other things you can do to network that really do make a difference. Yeah. It isn't against terms of service. It is allowed. What is against terms of service actually is the listings that don't actually, that you're not actually buying something. So when people put, and I don't see this as often as I used to, but buy my dog a treat, buy me a cup of coffee, help pay for my dinner. Those are against terms of service because they're not actually buying something that you can send them. So that's against terms of service. Those should be removed. Don't buy them. Don't buy people's dogs treats. Buy their stuff and they can use that money to buy their own dog treats, right? Endless says, I've been spending time networking in other adjacent categories and have gained some new followers and buyers. Yes, that helps. So, networking in a legitimate way is really a bigger deal. Okay. Isn't the bookmark me for so much money is not wrong too? Well, yeah, but you're just paying the host for their time to mention you, right? And then they do have to send you something still. So they have to send you a card or something. So they have to fulfill it. But yeah, I don't really love it either. But they haven't outright come out and said you're not allowed to do this. So yeah. But yeah, I think it's playing on desperate people's emotions for them to feel like they can go into a bigger seller show and buy the gift for the chat to run a giveaway and feel like they're actually going to get something out of it. And then at the same time, that bigger seller is snooty about anyone wanting to promote. It's like, yeah, I can pay you, but if I so much as even say anything in chat, I'm going to get my head ripped off, right? There's a lot of sellers like that. And I just think it comes across really icky to me to have sellers who, have all those things for sale for you to buy, but then you even try to say anything about who you are and what you do or whatever, and they start ripping your head off. So, you decide as a seller what things are worth to you. Now, it is against terms of service to just go into someone's show and start promoting yourself, but newer sellers coming on trying to figure out the app, and then they say something or do something and they get their head ripped off. Does that come across nice? Do you want to stay in that show? What's the vibe all of a sudden? Right? So I think overall, all around, it's better to just be community minded. People like a happy, good vibe. They're coming here just as much for the social aspect and the fun as they are for buying. And if you go into a show and suddenly the vibe is like, the person running the show is upset at chat because people are promoting or talking about other things or seemingly taking attention away from them, boo hoo, it's a bad vibe and people start leaving, right? So, have a good mix of still being community minded and still allowing people to network, and yet, being able to conduct your business. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm really bad at small talk just because it's hard for me to focus on running a show and chat at the same time. Some people are masters at that. And, kudos to them. They have a multitasking brain that allows them to just run the show. And, like in this show, I can just yak and I'm not trying to sell something. So I can focus on talking and chatting. But in the shows where I'm trying to sell, I struggle to carry on a conversation at the same time that I'm selling. My brain doesn't work that way, you know? But you can improve. You can improve on that. I'm lucky because Bert's there with me and he's better at chatting and commenting and singing and all that other stuff. So, yeah. But it can be hard. So you have to work on it. And it does help, when you start a show. I would say always start a show with, especially if you sell by yourself, always start a show with a prompt in your mind. Something you're going to start talking about when you open your show. Except for politics. Don't do politics. or, or get too preachy on something like that. That's going to turn people off, right? But what are some things you can talk about? And I think sharing about your life, you know, sharing things you've done, sharing, some of the dynamics of your family, just sharing things so that people make connections with you really, really helps, because you can start talking about, past things you've done, things you currently do, projects you're working on, and people start making those connections. Oh, I'm doing that too, or oh, this, or I've lived there, or yeah. So avoid politics, religion, and sex. Yes, exactly. Those are the kind of no topics because then it gets heated. So just, avoid things that are going to turn people off. You want everybody in your shows, no matter what their politics, religion, and sex are. And you don't want to turn people away if you have certain opinions or they think that you have certain opinions or whatever. What is it that Whatnot has similar to OBS? Well, you can use OBS with Whatnot. So Whatnot doesn't have integrated OBS. There are certain tools you can use, but Yeah, that you can just use OBS software with Whatnot. You just, get the OBS software, get it set up, and run your Whatnot show through the OBS system. I personally don't use it. I haven't felt like the glitchiness and the workarounds to make it work right are worth it. Timber says, I saw a seller literally fight with her husband on camera, shouting. I left. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, that's awkward. Yeah, don't do that. I've met some lovely people here who are having the same life experience of caregiving for a parent with dementia. Yes, talk about those kind of things because people, you make those connections and realize you're not alone. We all have a lot of the same problems at a lot of the same times, and you find people that are in the same seasons of life and things going on in their lives that are similar, and it helps boost you up. You can lift each other up, encourage each other through those hard things that we all have to deal with, right? So yeah, let's see. Well, thank you, Cherry. Have a great day. Sorry that well, no, I'm not sorry. You have a job. That's great. Make it a great day. Timber has to go too. You're welcome. So just keep in mind that I do multicast on YouTube. If you miss a show and we had a good conversation going, you can go rewatch it or watch the rest of it that you missed. So my YouTube account is in the show notes. Yeah, some of my people that I consider some of my very closest, bestest friends are people I've never met in person on this app, right? Because they have things in common with me that I didn't have someone around me physically that had those same things in common. So I've made some really close connections to people on this platform that I just consider very dear friends now. And how amazing is that? And you realize how much more room you have in your heart. It's awesome. So very, very cool. All right. Let's see, what time is it getting to be? I'm going to be on for about 5 more minutes. Does anyone have any, specific questions that you need help with? Remember to bookmark Wednesday evening. We're going to talk about how you can use social media to help your business on Whatnot and how important that is. So come tune in on Wednesday evening. We'll be in front of the camera talking about that. And is anyone in the audience going to Austin in April to the Whatnot Summit? Violet World says, I have a question. Someone told me that you're not supposed to bundle for people because of the auction format. Can you elaborate on that at all? Yeah, I don't know anything specific about not supposed to bundle. Do you mean like doing a show where, instead of selling each item individually, you're bundling it into sets or something? I think that would be all day long. I'm going to do that. So I'm not sure why they would say that. So, like a claim show where people build a bundle and then you run it and then you say you can't bid on this, it's only for so and so. Well, technically, if you do a claim show, you probably should run it out of the Buy It Now. Because it's the lazy way is to run it as an auction and not have to create a Buy It Now listing. But it's probably a better strategy if you're going to do a show like that to put it in the Buy It Now and let them check out. So it's just a bundle with their name on it. It's because it can get you in trouble if you do it the lazy way, run it as an auction, and then accidentally someone else bids. then you're in, then you've got a mess up that you have to fix. But, and claim shows aren't for everybody. Just because they take a lot of time, people get bored, because you're just sitting there claiming things. But it is a way for people to be able to, only have to do one transaction. Yeah. So I think it's fine if you can keep track of it and keep it organized and, and then have them check out. We do have in beta test in other countries right now where they are doing a weekly bundle. I don't know exactly how it works because we don't have it here. But basically, what it is people can come into a show, buy some items, and then it suspends that sale until they've had multiple shows. And then they can buy things over multiple shows and check out once a week. Something to that effect. They're beta testing it. I don't know how it's going. Yeah. So we'll see. So you do that with a buyer in Canada. Yeah. So you've been buying stuff from someone in Canada using that method. And how do you feel about it? Or wait, they've been buying from you. Because Canada is one of the countries beta testing that. So but yeah, it's legit through the app. So the way they have it set up. Let's see, I have bought from a US show that thrifts and they allow bundling for a week. How are they doing it though? So they're just saving this stuff for you. You don't actually buy it until like the end of the week. So like you go in and claim some stuff and they have a box for you and then like at the end of the week. So I mean if they're willing to take that risk, I wouldn't want to do that because you get stiffed, You have someone come in and say I want that and I want that and I want that and then the end of the week, oh crap, I didn't get as much on my paycheck, sorry. And then you're holding these boxes of things for people over time and yeah. So they go to say a thrift and they allow bundling, but they run it if more people want it. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. If you're really organized and you have it figured out and you have it down to a science, go for it. I personally hate those kinds of shows because you have to wait for, who claimed it. Oh, was it me? Was it him? Sometimes there's a lag in the chat and you can't tell who claimed it first. And then from the seller's perspective, trying to keep everybody's orders straight and check them out. And I don't know. So they said they do get stiff sometimes, but not often. Yeah. So if someone has it all set up and organized and it works great for them, go for it. I just haven't felt like it works good for us. And my husband absolutely hates it, drives him crazy. So, and I have to live with him. So, yeah. So we did a few like that with like patterns, and we did that once we ended up with a couple of huge bins of DVDs that were, some of them were like older, like collectible ones because they were rare or something, I don't know. And we did a claim show with the DVDs, but that was very niche and so it worked, So it just depends on what you're doing. So then they just do a show at the end of the week for their items and they buy, and any stuff that buyers backed out, they run at a discount. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So what Jen says, I have a Friday night show. Will the shipping clock start Saturday? I can't remember. I've heard depending on the show on the weekend, you have till Monday. Yeah. technically Friday shows you don't have to ship till Monday. So I usually ship on Saturday because my post office locally is open and I can run stuff over as long as I get there before 12:30. So I will usually ship it on Saturday, but you technically don't have to because the shipping is based on weekdays, business days. So yeah, that is correct. So it doesn't start until Monday. Yeah, I like to get it out the door if I can. But if I have a show on Saturday, then obviously that can't. I mean, I'll get it all packed and everything, but I don't scan it and take it to the post office until Monday. So that's another thing, that in-app scanner, use it, but use it correctly. Don't scan a label without a package. Don't do that. That comes across as scammy. Your customers actually see that picture. Do you know that? So if you scan a label and there's no package attached to it, they see the picture and it's you holding this label. They see that picture. The in-app scanner is intended for you to scan the package after it's already boxed up or in the poly mailer or whatever, right before you drop it off or right before the post office picks it up. So remember to not ever scan just the label, because then that comes across as, I'm not actually sending you a package. I just scanned the label so that I can get paid. Right? And maybe that wasn't your intent. You're just trying to keep your stuff timely, but then it comes across as, I'm not actually going to send it on time. How to get viewers on items you may not continue to sell. I'm selling my homeschool and book items, but won't be buying and selling more later. So make sure you advertise it as a D-stash. You're just, one time only D-stash, come get it, clearing it out, because then the idea is it's going to be a good deal. You're just clearing it out and put it in the right category so that people who want that stuff are actually going to see it. But there's strategies you can use in your title and your thumbnail that get people excited about, oh, I better go check out that show. It's a one-time opportunity only to get this stuff. It's going to be gone. That makes sense. So create the FOMO with your thumbnail and your title and your category. And, but it is harder if that's not a category that you regularly sell in, to get a lot of attention. Pre-schedule it far enough out that people have seen it for a while so you can start getting bookmarks. Advertise it heavily in your other shows. By the way, on such and such a date, and show them the show, I'm going to be destashing this. So anyone interested, make sure you have that show bookmarked. It's going to be good deals, blah, 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 blah. See what I mean? So schedule it out far in advance, advertise the heck out of it, put it in the thumbnail and the title, one-time opportunity, clearing this out, etc., etc. Okay. So, because you want to have it on, schedule it in advance enough that you can get, more bookmarks, more attention, more opportunity to advertise it. So if you haven't been able to do that, maybe, reschedule that out a little bit further and promote it. So, yeah. Yep. All right. I need to get going. You guys have a marvelous day. Let's go find someone to raid. And let me see who is out there. We're going to raid into a fabric show because that's what I'm selling today. And Let me see. Let's go read into, how about Quilter's Garden? I don't think I've rated them before. So we're going to go read into Quilter's Garden. And you guys have an amazing day. And make sure you have these shows bookmarked if you find them helpful. And appreciate you being here. All right, here we go. Creating a raid over to Quilter's Garden. All right, see you soon. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye.